bad health impacts. Even comes down to safety, being able to invest in the basic things that keep you and your family and your neighbors safe. So because of the National Low-Income Housing Coalition's data, which we in our office have really relied on, so I want to thank you for that. We know that in the state of Indiana, there are just 37 affordable and available homes for every 100 of the lowest income individuals. Now, I mean, I'm not benchmarking that against any other states, but I know there's similar stories that can be told across this country. 37 out of every 100 lowest income individuals have access to affordable and available homes. I know we can do better as a country, so that's what this is all about. This impacts our seniors, this impacts people with disabilities, entire family units with children, and others. We are the land of opportunity. I refuse to believe otherwise. It's part of our DNA. Individuals and families can't thrive, however, without access to economical housing. Housing affordability is a problem that is going to require a robust response at different levels of government, federal, state, local, and we're going to have to work together to ensure that the private sector has sufficient incentives and they're operating in an environment that leads them to produce more at the right price points. So this means, in large measure, breaking down unnecessary and duplicative regulatory barriers to drive development and investment, ensuring access to housing vouchers for those that need it most, and reforming exclusionary zoning and restrictive land use policies that stifle production and growth. But most of all, it means listening. Doing what I started to do at the beginning of my term and I continue to do now, and so many of you do in your respective positions and communities. Listening to leaders about how to solve this issue. So one step I've taken, and it was mentioned in the introduction, is to introduce with Senator Van Hollen of Maryland, this Housing Choice Voucher Mobility Demonstration Act. This is, of course, grounded in rigorous research by Raj Chetty at Harvard and was just signed into law by the president. It's going to make it easier for folks to move to where the opportunities are, to where the jobs are, to where they can actually establish a career and grow a family, take care of that family, become anchored in a community. One of the things I heard at many of my fair shot agenda roundtables was that families receiving HUD vouchers, they live in good communities, nice areas with great people, but sometimes these are low opportunity areas. They may find a job, but it's across town or in the suburbs where public transportation doesn't go. So we need to remove those sorts of barriers. And thanks to our legislation, greater choice and mobility will actually be emphasized in HUD's Housing Choice Voucher Program, and that's a good thing. I also introduced a bipartisan bill last Congress, and we'll soon be reintroducing it. This establishes the task force that was also mentioned in the introduction. We're going to evaluate and, perhaps most importantly, quantify the impact that this dearth of affordable housing has on other government programs, so we can make the argument to our colleagues, look, if failure to invest over here costs us even more money over here. We're laying the predicate for bold action. And we're also asking that consensus recommendations be provided from this bipartisanly appointed commission, concrete recommendations to Congress. These are the things you can do to help alleviate the housing affordability crisis. So this is not a talking commission. This is a commission that's all about poising us for bold action that will be informed by the perspectives of a diverse array of housing affordability experts, people who work in this space like yourselves and others. So we know this crisis, and I don't think that's too strong a term. I'll continue to use it until somebody persuades me otherwise, but it's been developing for some period of time, and like so many things in our society and throughout our economy and culture, it's not conducive to probably really quick fixes. We're going to have to stay at this as a team, as a country, continue to work at this together. And that's why I'm so happy to be here, because I know there are a number of like-minded individuals from across the country, from different perspectives, with different skill sets and different networks. And I have high confidence, otherwise I wouldn't be here, that together we're going to make a really meaningful difference in addressing this crisis. So I look forward to continuing to listen. I'll continue to show up if you'll continue to have me. Thanks for this opportunity today. God bless you all. I'll tell you, he just asked me if I take questions. I normally find it the most interesting part of one of these things to take questions. I get time? Okay, great. Well, I'll take 2 questions, and I'm known for, I'll call them comprehensive answers. These are going to be tight, all right? So. I think I see 2 there.
She won't let me have the mic, but I will ask my question.
It's a good best practice.
Yeah, it's a best practice. As a fellow Midwesterner from your neighboring state of Ohio, with deep roots in Indiana,
all right.
I want to thank you for showing up. It's great to have you here.
Thank you.
And thanks for working on this issue. I wonder, as I think about our other elected officials, particularly on the Republican side, how could we make our case in a more compelling way?
So, I talked about laying that predicate, right? I think for too long, too many in this town, and I'll answer your question, but I just won't, I won't repeat the party affiliation part of it, right? But for too long, too many in this town have looked narrowly at a lot of our important challenges within this artificial 10-year budget window that we're required to look at things. You know, Republicans and Democrats alike said we got to have budget rules to score every proposal. But oftentimes these investments, whether it's in people or housing or infrastructure or public health or other things, they don't pay off until year 15 or year 20, and so that's why it's important. But some do. Some pay off within a fairly short time period. So if we can have this quantified in a consensus fashion from people from different sides of the ideological spectrum, take all the politics out of it, present the evidence, I can win that argument among colleagues on both sides of the aisle. And so I call this in the Marine Corps shaping the battlefield. You don't just go into the fight. You got to kind of prepare the battle. Know what kind of soil you're dealing with, all kinds of other things. We're shaping the battlefield with this Housing Force Task Force. In the meanwhile, we're doing all sorts of other things. They're kind of rifle shot opportunities to get some wins, like we're looking at security deposit reform and a lot of other things that we know are good ideas. But we're shaping the battlefield and building consensus. And I think with your support and others in this room, working the phone, showing up, hey, Senator Yong, he seems like a pretty agreeable, reasonable guy. Why don't you sign on to his legislation, working with Van Hollen? With that sort of collective support, we'll get it done. One thing politicians of both sides of the aisle are real good at doing is listening to their constituents, all right? We know who our bosses are, too.
Hi, I'm Michael Kane from the National Alliance of HUD Tenants. We're the tenants union in privately owned HUD multifamily housing. We have a number of no-cost suggestions for improving the REAC inspection process by empowering residents as partners with HUD. We're meeting with Senator Rubio's office on Friday. He has a bill that would restore surveys to residents as part of that process. Question is, are you familiar with that bill, and would you be interested in our no-cost?
You have me on no cost. I am really interested. I'm familiar with what I think is related, but not exactly the same as that bill. There was actually an initiative, incredibly bold years ago, to give ownership rights in public housing to the tenants, and ultimately the tenants would manage the entire, and that inspires me. We looked into it. There were mixed results. I do follow the evidence. There were mixed results about but that's not to say that the model was flawed. It's possible the implementation was flawed. So if anyone wants to explore that with our office, I got a little lift from the audience. I'd welcome you to contact our office. So that's from the Jack Kemp wing of the Republican Party, and that's a wing that I embrace. So thank you for having me. And once again, God bless. Keep up the work.